Hello and welcome to Bits and Atoms, the Grisham Robotics Founder Series. I'm your host, Elias Can, and today I've got Nicholas Charles, co-founder and CEO of Danti, joining me. To get started, Nicholas, would you mind sharing a quick intro about you and Danti?
Yeah, sure. Love to share it. I'll give you the short version. So essentially, my own family, how it came about is my own family suffered what is known as shirt sleeve to shirt sleeves within 3 generations. Great grandfather was a multimillionaire. By the time my dad was 8 years old, it all completely gone. And me listening to this story as a young teenager did not resonate that well with me. I ended up becoming a qualified accountant, tax advisor, and real estate investor. But then I started seeing the same problem happening within my own client base. And that got me interested in the realm of generational wealth. Why were families losing this money despite there being hundreds, if not thousands, of professional advisors out there? Quickly realized that these professional advisors weren't actually focusing on the real reasons why families fell. Ended up writing 2 books on the subject, got them both to #1 on Amazon. So what? Big deal. The outreach was limited because the problem was global. I needed a global solution. And the only way around that is with tech. Sadly, my background is not in tech, but luckily my good friend and now co-founder, Madhavan Ramakrishnan, Y Combinator alumnus, bought and sold and exited 3 tech businesses in the past, is a tech genius, read my second book called Generational Wealth, and we came together, designed and built, and are now distributing Danti.
Amazing. Great intro. And I think the family history context there speaks a lot and maybe leads and in a way maybe answers my next question as well, in terms of what originally motivated you to become a founder. Anything else origin story wise for you in terms of starting Danti?
So as a professional by trade, becoming a founder in a startup massively took me out of my comfort zone. Don't know if you recognize professionals at all, but they're not the greatest entrepreneurs, should we say, because we're not trained to be entrepreneurs. I'll be brutally honest. We're trained to be experts within our field. Mine is taxation and property investing. But I realized it was a big problem, and it was a problem that I had a passion to solve. And I wanted to utilize technology because that's the way the world is at the moment. Don't need to explain to you what's happening in the realm of tech and AI moving at the speed of light. And essentially wanted to provide a tech solution that helps effectively digitize and create an operating system for wealthy families to help them retain not just the financial capital, but the wisdom behind it. And that's what we're building today with Danti.
Yep. Very interesting. And maybe to peek a little bit more behind the curtain for those of us who aren't ultra high net worth or have this great kind of family legacy or estate to inherit, how are these traditionally handled? What have folks done? I'm sure it's looked a bit different over generations as more technology has been introduced. Maybe what's kind of like the standard today in terms of how estate and legacy are handled?
Okay, so it'll be a bit crude of me to say it's mishandled, but essentially 90% of families will lose all their wealth within just 3 generations. And that stat has not improved in the last 2,000-3,000 years of recorded wealth that we know about today, looking at the history books. And it's fascinating why humanity hasn't learned from history. But I recently did a presentation comparing great empires to families and the similarities between the rise and fall of empires and families. So essentially, people fail to appreciate that families consist of human beings, and there's a human element to wealth. Now, traditional advisors focus on what they do best, which is looking after the money, because money doesn't have personalities, money doesn't differentiate, money doesn't conflict, money is money. And we are trained, I say we because, hey, I am an accountant, I am a tax professional. We're focused on looking after the tax, reducing the tax liabilities, making clients more tax efficient. What do lawyers do? They help protect the wealth. What do asset managers do? They look after the assets under management. Wealth advisors the same, financial advisors the same. trustees, etc. It's all about protecting, managing, and maintaining the financial capital. Now, what I quickly realized, there was nothing out there, even today, not just in terms of tech, but in terms of advice, that actually looks after the people within the family. Now, the beauty with AI today is that there are solutions, or we're building a solution that makes it possible for you to be able to store and share not just the financial capital, but the human and intellectual capital. Because guess what? The most successful families in the world, and we've heard of most of them, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Waltons, just to give a few examples, that's what they do. So does it not make sense to follow on those that achieved generational financial success?
Yeah, interesting. And so you'd say beyond just the financial component, it's also this wisdom or intellectual piece, and how you're trying to do a better job of carrying that forward with Danti. And I see the banner behind you with some of the pillars of generational wealth and communication on there. Maybe just to better understand, like, how does that communication piece work within Danti? Like, product wise, how have you kind of set that up so that that wisdom can be carried forward?
Yeah, brilliant question. I mean, communication is actually the main reason why families will either succeed or fail. So 60% of families fail because of poor communication, because that leads to distrust. Distrust leads to emotional conflict. And as the great Warren Buffett once said, if you can't control your emotions, don't ever expect to control money. It all starts with the simple bit is getting clarity over your wealth. What do you own? Where is it? Where is the paperwork? Who are the advisors? What are the structures? What do they look like? Where are they based? If you don't have clarity, then how on earth can you, effectively communicate the wealth? And that's just the most, I'm talking like foundational level. We start by having clarity over your assets. Okay, that's straightforward. What about the rest of it? What about that wisdom behind the wealth? And what does that actually mean? Best way to explain it, we'll give you a simple case study. We've got a client who invested in a car park. Brilliant. So what? It's a car park. They're to get run over by a bus today. Their beneficiaries will inherit a car park that yields pretty much no income. What are they going to do with it? They're going to get rid of it. They don't know anything behind. There's no wisdom behind that particular car park. But in fact, that car park is due to get planning permission within the next 5-10 years. The value will 10x as a result of that planning permission. But unfortunately, today, only one person knows about this. And that's the main entrepreneur who runs the property portfolio. Now, if he were to actually record that wisdom behind the car park, don't sell it. Here's how you're going to get the planning permission. It's going to go up by 10x. These are the people you need to speak to. Once you've obtained planning permission, I would advise not to develop it because it's going to cost too much money. Therefore, you need to sell it. This is the people you need to sell to, and this is how much money you expect to make. None of this, by the way, is ever recorded in something like a will. We all know about wills. This wisdom will never get recorded in that type of document. So it's either retained through word of mouth, maybe yes, maybe no, or you have a digital system like Danti to record that within the asset class itself. And that's just one very simple example of capturing the wisdom behind the asset. And then you've got the actual wisdom of the founder and the benefactor themselves. So that's his lessons, his or hers lessons, experiences, expertise, knowledge. We've all heard of ChatGPT. Well, wouldn't it be amazing? And it's possible now to have legacy GPT. You go into a platform and you literally ask your great granddad, I'm about to start a business. What advice would you give me? And it's him or her, and they're literally telling you what to do based on their experiences of growing a multi-million-pound business. Now, how valuable is that? And what value do you place on that? I mean, it's huge. It's not just about handing over a check to the next generation. It's handing over a check and the understanding, education behind that check, behind that financial capital. And that is key to retaining generational wealth. And that's the direction we're going in with Danti.
Yep. And it gives both that, kind of holistic breadth, but also deep specificity into some of like those things you mentioned around like a certain business or a certain like topic area, but also like you said with the legacy GPT component, giving a more holistic way to pick, for lack of a better term, pick the brain or get the advice from the family member who's no longer with us. I'm curious too, like when you're chatting with some of these families, maybe they have, you know, very established folks that they've used historically on the finance side, and obviously a bit less on the communication side. Like, what does the conversation with these families look like when you're sharing the capabilities of Danti with them? How does that conversation work?
Huge interest in the wisdom capture, which is part of, you know, why we're looking to raise capital in order to build it, because it is a key differentiator. It's essentially our USP. Nearly every platform out there focuses on financial capital. I won't name them. I'm not going to name our competitors, shall I say, but essentially, still, I find amazing, the number one tool that's used by our ideal client is a system that was invented in the 1970s known as the spreadsheet. As shocking as that sounds, people still utilize spreadsheets to control, manage, and maintain their wealth, despite its limitations, despite the fact how difficult it is to share it, despite the fact how difficult it is to get collaboration amongst your advisors on a spreadsheet. But it's what people know. And what I've noticed is it can be quite difficult to shift people and shift perceptions away from what they know, despite where, you know, where technology is taking us today. And having another tool that just focuses on finance, not sufficient, unless you're looking at the, you know, the mega single family offices who are worth 500+ million. That's great, but that's not our ideal client. And even those families, by the way, still use spreadsheets, which I also find amazing. So I've spoken to like the really, really big single family offices, like I said, in excess of 500 million net worth, and they prefer the flexibility of a spreadsheet. So we needed to find something that can compete and provide something that's uniquely different to what's already out there. So yes, the finance is important, but then you have to marry it up with the wisdom behind it. And now you've got a tool that looks at all the wealth. And wealth, by the way, means well-being. Doesn't necessarily mean money. So people keep forgetting that. It's all about retaining wealth for the next generation, not simply financial capital.
Yep. Yeah, and those dreaded spreadsheets, always very hard to get away and avoid them. They always find their way back into our lives in many different regards.
Because we've been using it for 10, 20, 30 years sometimes, maybe even more. And it's what we know. So, you always go back to what you know. It's just human instinct.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned this before, so maybe to switch gears and touch on this a little bit as well, because you mentioned the fundraising piece. Like for you so far, strategically, what have been good kind of avenues or ways for you to find potential investors? How does the fundraising process on your side look like, and any practical tips or things that you think have gone well, or in hindsight you've realized didn't work as well but was a good learning piece for me?
Yeah, I mean, getting a clear understanding of your pitch, never lose hope, because it can be demoralizing raising money. It really can be. It gets in the way of running the business as well. So I don't want to be too much of a downer. There are upsides. If you passionately believe in what it is that you're trying to do and trying to achieve, getting that messaging out there in a very clear manner is absolutely key. Now, I thought I had that nailed. Luckily, I onboarded some amazing advisors recently who actually turn around to me and say, look, we're investors. We've got huge track record of investing in businesses. We still don't quite understand what Danti's all about. So that was a great learning curve for me. So I've literally gone back almost to the drawing board to reshape my messaging across to tally up what we're currently doing today, because a real estate element in what we're doing to get some client signups, and the bigger picture, which is the whole Danti wisdom capture tool that I mentioned to you. So yeah, it's been a steep learning curve. Look, joining place, I'm going to name you guys. Grisham Robotics was a massive help. for me. It really helped my pitch. So I never envisaged doing a 3-minute pitch. And wow, it is a lot harder than it actually sounds. 10-15 minutes is so much easier than 3 minutes. It really, really is. But yeah, got me out of my comfort zone, helped me connect with some amazing founders, which I absolutely loved, and secured one very good investor from the day itself, a brilliant investor, actually. He's worth a significant amount of money. And he's now joined my board as well. Loves what we're doing, loves the direction of the business, and that's good. You need some small wins. You do need it as a founder, because it's a very lonely world. Raising money, running a business, pushing, trying to get clients up, changing everything, getting on top of AI as well, learning about that, what works, what doesn't work. But hey, it's fun. It's something that I'm very, very passionate about. I understand and appreciate it's a huge problem. No one's clocked it, which has also been brilliant for me, because yes, there's huge competition out there, but they're still focusing on the original mindset of it's all about the money, because their background, what I've seen, is technically from investment banking, and they look after assets under management. So guess what? They brought out these amazing tools that does pretty much the same thing they were doing in the past. And that still doesn't solve the problem, because no one out there, none of the founders or none of the people that essentially competing with me have written 2 books on generational wealth and don't quite understand what it takes to retain wealth for multiple generations. It's a lot bigger than simply creating a very cool, sexy tool that helps you run the numbers more efficiently, because that's not it. And if it was, there'll be a dominant player in this market. And today there isn't. I mean, there still isn't a dominant player. Still, the fact that 90 to 95% of people in our bracket are still using spreadsheets speaks volumes of of the fact that there isn't a Google or a Facebook that completely dominates this space. No one dominates this space. There's plenty of players, but no one dominates.
Yeah. And that fragmentation is a great way to kind of find opportunity there, because yeah, to your point, there is no 900-pound gorilla in the room. There's spreadsheets and maybe some other tools like you mentioned, but no true market leader from that side. And so it gives you a great opportunity. And you mentioned as well that, fundraising, the amount of time and effort and time taken away from actually running your business. I always have a lot of empathy for founders, because I think fundraising turns into a full-time job with already your full-time job of being CEO or whatever your role might be at the firm. And so, yeah, it's time intensive for sure. But like you said, if you can collect some of these small wins and get some momentum, it always kind of helps push forward and keep morale high.
Yeah, that's key. And park your ego. Be prepared to be told that you're wrong, accept it, but also believe in yourself. You don't have to sit there and listen to everyone. Everyone's got an opinion, but no one's quite right. So you have to be firm, but also at the same time have the ability to listen to advice, even if it might go against your inner belief, shall we say. So it's a balancing act. I mean, it really is a balancing act. You want to surround yourself with brilliant people. You want to take on their advice, but at the same time, you're the key driver of that particular business. So you're the one who has to make the decision, and the buck stops with you, and you've got to understand and appreciate that. And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's great practical advice for any founder listening to always have kind of that humility, but to your point as well, everyone's got an opinion. Doesn't mean you need to listen to all of them all the time. Kind of pick and choose your battles there, and pick and choose, who you want to lend your ear to, essentially.
Yeah, no, 100%. And things change, by the way. You expect to pivot, be as flexible as possible. What you originally thought was going to be the thing that was going to make you loads of money might not be. In fact, you're going to quickly find out that you were completely wrong from the outset, and you have to twist, you have to turn, and like I said, you have to pivot. You listen to your customers, listen to your investors, because that's the feedback that is going to effectively form the direction of the business and where you're going to be going, and make tough decisions and difficult decisions as well. I mean, really difficult decisions. But if you believe in what you're doing, just keep going. Don't give up. Believe in yourself and just keep pushing. Even though sometimes it feels like, you know, you're pushing a 2-ton boulder uphill, you'll get to the top at some stage and then it'll be downhill all the way. So yeah, just stick at it, really.
Absolutely. And awesome. And with that, we're at time. I want to thank you, Nicholas, for joining me on Bits and Atoms. It was great to have you today. I'll let you get back to building and fundraising, and wishing you the best.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was really good. Enjoyed it.